Welcome back to Eliminate the Gap. As you can see, we've got the full house here for a very special episode. This is our year in review. Believe it or not, we have been doing this for a year, and it's been a lot of fun. We've learned a lot. Some of us have changed our hairstyles over time and our backgrounds, and it's been quite a journey for sure. And we're excited at the end of this episode to kind of give you a sense of what's coming in year two. But today's going to really feature and kind of help us reflect on what kind of made 2021 pretty good and interesting for us in this podcast. So we've each had the chance to choose a couple clips. Hopefully you'll find them to be either some of your favorites or ones maybe you haven't seen quite yet. So we will have some fun kind of doing that. But before we get into the clips, Del, kind of what are you thinking about as we've been at this for a year now?
Well, thinking back, we had 2020, right? And then 2021 had to be better. And so 2022, we get ready to take this thing up yet another level. So I'm really excited about that. I'm really just reflecting back on all the episodes and all of our guests. We had some phenomenal guests, and we hope that this is for you viewers out there. We hope this is providing some content that will help you to reflect, to help your organizations grow, to help the movement grow, really, at the end of the day. And that's why we're doing this. So we really are pleased with you guys. Thanks for watching. And we just, again, look for more and bigger and better things in 2022.
Absolutely. And, one of the changes, or not changes, evolution, we'll call it, that we've done is we've continued to expand the folks that are, asking the questions and finding the interesting people to talk to. And Raul certainly joined in and took on an even bigger role as things went on. So by popular demand, Raul, what are you thinking about as 2021 passes and we move forward?
Well, I think for Eliminate the Gap, the issues, the words, the experiences of the folks that we've been interviewing, I think has hit home for a lot of the audience, is what we've been hearing. A lot of things that are practical, a lot of things they can use, a lot of things that they can also get in touch with the folks that we're talking to about. And it doesn't always have to be the same experience. Everything is different. I think tonight is going to be an example of that. We chose the clips. There are some things that are going to be said about investments that we won't see in our lifetime. There are things about flipping the script, about the way that we think about young people that are going to be like key themes, I think, moving forward. So we're excited, certainly about 2022, looking forward to it, having some other folks, join us a little bit and help us reach some more people. But 2022 looks good. So I agree with Del.
What's not to like? So I appreciate you all. It's been a lot of fun just to have us kind of do this. Started out as something informally we were doing, like many people were on any given evening when we were all locked down, and we were just spending time chatting about the things that matter to us, whether it be education, after school, but really, how is it that young people are going to continue to grow up and develop well? And that's really kind of been the commitment of this podcast from the beginning. And we've had a lot of subject matters that we've covered. We, very heavy early on in how are we handling and coming out of the pandemic, which we never fully have come out of. Mm-hmm. And how different folks are handling that. We've dealt with some very difficult issues like youth isolation and trauma and just the reality of mental health and the toll it's taking on a lot of folks, but especially young people and a whole other host of issues. And we did a live global podcast which was pretty cool. We had folks from around the world literally joining us and contributing. So we've done and learned a lot and experimented. And we feel like 2022 is shaping up to take those lessons that we've learned and apply them in a way that continues to keep the content rich. So again, we're very excited to kind of have this moment to look back, and then we're going to end it with us definitely looking forward. So in the spirit of that, when we kind of talked about this, we wanted this to be kind of a youth development and community development focus. And we've had a variety of experts in the field, the folks that have been in the field for a long time that have really kind of set the foundation from a research as well as implementation and adaptation in what it really looks like in communities. And one of those folks, so one of my clips that I chose is from Karen Pittman. And many of you listening are probably familiar with her work, her writing, the work at the Forum for Youth Investment, all those kinds of things. And in fact, shortly after Karen came on our podcast, she created a podcast herself with some other folks. And you know what? We love that, because the more folks that are out there talking about ways to affect young people's lives, the better. So I chose a kind of a fairly basic clip to Karen in her own words, kind of talking about what the shift was for her, and as a result, the field in youth development and how things really kind of took off from there. So in her words, from Karen Pittman.
Cost benefit analysis and put it out there and take it out into communities, and people would tell us, I don't care what it costs, I want that kid locked up. So if you've got the mindset that there are kids who are making your neighborhood and your kid unsafe, arguing that it's cheaper doesn't work. That was in the midnight basketball sort of when people were saying, oh, look, if we really put these programs in place, they cost so much less, then it'll solve the problem. And people did not fundamentally trust that. They did not really trust the idea that the kids they were most afraid of were the kids who were going to show up in the programs. So that didn't work. What frankly worked was really training the young people to be advocates for themselves, and not in-your-face advocates, but really savvy advocates.
So there we have it. Miss Pittman, thank you so much for your time here on the ETG podcast. This next clip actually is from Shauna, who actually comes from Playworks, and I was not familiar with Playworks prior to this, so it was really nice to kind of hear some of her perspective. But one of the reasons I chose the clip from Shauna is because at the end of the day, sometimes, and I know this from when we went to localities and from actually doing it right now, being in the midst of doing it, sometimes we get so bogged down in having to do what's next, the next thing. You sometimes get the big picture gets lost sometimes. So this is one I just think, and it's a great refresher to just come back and sometimes step back and just do things that we know we should be doing, but sometimes it just gets lost because we forget or there's other things that take priority. So this clip from Shauna, we'll take a look.
To that brain development. So when you guys talk about eliminating the gap, play plays a central role in ensuring that kids have the brain development and the tools they need in order for us to build on, in order for us to build both the academic and also social, emotional, or 21st century skills, whatever we want to call them, that are critical to their lifelong success.
And there we go. Thank you, Shauna, also for coming on this show and being a part of this. And that moves us into our next guest there, Dennis. Dennis actually had a couple of things. It was hard to pick there. He had some great quotes there. Actually, one quote that we're not going to use, I actually still have in my room, and I talk to my kids about this on a regular basis, which was step in, climb up, and step out, Dennis. So there you go, man. Thanks for that one. But this actual clip that we're going to use here was really reflecting from last summer, us coming about a year removed from a lot of just unrest, especially for young people. But young people, I believe, had a voice that they hadn't had in the past here with all the things that were going on in our country, especially in relations to young Black youth. And young people actually got out and they had a voice, not only a voice that was reckoned with, that people heard, but they did it in a way that wasn't, I guess, disruptive or out of line or any of those things. They did it in a way that brought them to the national limelight, really. Young people actually getting out and being advocates for themselves for something that they really felt strongly about. And that's what we really push in youth development. So that's why this one here I chose from Dennis. So here it is.
I said during that whole period that it's caused me to, as Dr. Martin Luther King said while in the Birmingham jail, it's caused me to think long thoughts, dream long dreams, and pray long prayers. So it's been a reflective moment for me. In the final analysis, though, what it has said to me is that it's incumbent upon organizations like the Center for Leadership Development to be about its business of being excellent in the preparation and cultivation of African American youth. If there is this concern about justice, if there's this concern about empowerment, then there has to be this concomitant willingness to invest and sacrifice to make sure young people are prepared. I mean, excellently prepared to take advantage of opportunities as they come to the fore. And Martin Luther King said presciently during his lifetime, he said, doors are opening like never before. Now, all this is relative, but they were talking about just being able the opportunity to go into an integrated school. He said, doors are opening like never before. And yet his warning was, then we must be prepared to take advantage of those opportunities as the door opens. And so the situation of the past year and beyond has reminded me of Center for Leadership Development's responsibility to make sure that we are excellent in getting young people ready in advance or ahead of time.
You know, Don, I'm glad you chose that clip from Dennis, and I agree there were lots of options, as there are with many of our guests. But Dennis Bland from the Center for Leadership Development just really had just a way of kind of communicating his message there. There's my cat. So delighted to be able to focus on him this evening as well. So our next clip is Fiona McCauley. Fiona had started Making Sense International, which some of you may be familiar with, and has now gone on to found an organization called Women Innovators in Leadership Development. And they have a big conference actually coming up here in the next couple of months in May, and we'll continue to share information about that. I chose this clip from Fiona because to me, it was resonant of the times, again, coming out of not only the pandemic, but what we've learned, not only in the nonprofit community, but really in society. And I feel like she tells a very interesting reflection of the way things have moved over the last couple of years. So I wanted to make sure we kind of shared that voice again. So here's Fiona.
One of the things that I'm kind of thinking about and writing about at the moment is on who's getting promoted, who's being given the leadership opportunities. And what we see the research showing is that it's not necessarily truly performance-based. Sometimes those who are, particularly men, are given opportunities who are demonstrating some of those, what I would say, like increasingly kind of becoming out of date leadership skills, meaning people, men who are showing up as being more charismatic and more confident are kind of seen as leaders and given those promotions or greater leadership opportunities. Whereas if we kind of remove the if we move both the bias towards men as leaders, and that those traits being more important than other leadership traits, such as taking care of the team, problem solving, doing some of the more the behind the scenes leadership work, then we can see, so if we sort of strip away some of that, then we can see that it is not always the loudest person in the room who is the person who deserves the promotion or new leadership opportunity. It's actually may often be the quieter woman who is the higher performer. So I mention that because I think many of us, women and men, share those biases that will mean that sometimes the wrong pick, or often the wrong person, is getting kind of picked for the greater opportunities. And so women, I believe, are often like caught in and the research shows this as well, that women can often be caught in this bind, where if we think about leaders being judged on two axes, like axes around that kind of traditional strong sense, leaders of like strength, so determination, boldness, charisma. But then there's another axis around that's really kind of caring for the team, ensuring like the well-being of the people, the project, the company. And women who are too high on those kind of leadership strength axes, like too bold, too outspoken, too opinionated, women are given less leeway on those characteristics than men are. And then at the same time, women are expected to demonstrate a higher amount of caring than their male counterparts are. So my view is that it's good to understand the playing field, because if we're the kind of people, and those of us engaging in this conversation in the audience are the kind of people who want to change the playing field, then let's understand where the playing field is now, and let's use the power and influence that we have to understand our own biases around the kind of leadership behaviors that we're applauding and rewarding, and how we can also coach and influence and nudge others to be building the leadership skills and rewarding the leadership skills that truly lead to positive outcomes, whether that's within a social enterprise, whether that's within a global development NGO or company. I think we all have a part to play in our own leadership behaviors, but then in the kind of leadership behaviors we are encouraging and rewarding in others around us.
Continuing the conversation about leadership, Rustam Bernard has demonstrated over many, many years as the lead building bridges across the river, some of the things that he's had to do, some of the stereotypes, perceptions, thoughts that people have had, and he just talks about the leadership. This is one of the biggest youth programs in the country that provides comprehensive youth and family services in education, everything from financial services to moving on to leadership development of our young people, to job training. So all the things that you would want to help build a community and build it stronger. I think Rustam tells us something a little bit about investment. I think that we were very interested in. Rustam.
So I think I mentioned to you, the audience here, these are global youth development professionals, funders, other folks that are interested in the best lessons learned in different places. Certainly, you guys are a shining example of that. If you had a message to leave people with about the work and in general going forward, the vision that needs to be there, what would you tell them?
I would say that I said it earlier, that life, in essence, is a series of investments. And the younger generation needs a level of effort and investment in order to get the yield that we want our world to become. And I think that today we have some of that, but I do believe that if we want to change the world, it really lies in the hands of our young people, and our youth developers are mentors, guides, teachers, servants in order to do that. And so I would say for whatever you can do to invest in our young people. That's what we're doing here every single day. That's what I would encourage you and anyone else listening in to do, is continue that investment. The last thing I'll say about that investment is the return on that investment may not be in your lifetime. And so my suggestion is, our recommendation is, invest without thinking about the possibility of that return in your lifetime. And that's the key that I think needs to be told and shared and reverberated.
So, Rastan led us off with investments in young people. Greg Taylor, who works leading the work of the MBA Foundation, really gets into what's going on in the MBA cities, how we're flipping the script as well, in making sure that our communities, our corporate entities, our folks that are welcoming young people into the world of work, understand where to meet our young people. So the system up until now has been designed to get young people ready for the system and for the world of work. The MBA Foundation is finding a lot of success in flipping that and getting employers ready to meet young people where they are. Greg.
Yeah, it's a great question, Raul. I mean, there's a couple things I would say in response. I mean, we spend so much time pouring our energy into the youth development space, into young people directly. We want to make sure that they have mentors. We want to make sure they're in safe spaces. We want to make sure they're in spaces that they can define to reflect their culture and their voice, as you will. But I also think we don't spend enough time in getting, in my case, eventual employers ready for young people, right? So it's like young people ready for the world of work. We also have to get the world of work ready for young people. And I think we don't spend enough time on that side. And so I think in many ways why I keep talking about like the influence to work in our markets is we can have that employer ready for youth conversation at the 2.0 level, because we're all kind of familiar with each other moving forward. So I think that's one. So I think you have to spend some time there. It's not just prepare the young person and then set them go forth in the wild and hope they land. We have to really be thoughtful on how do you get organizations ready to receive them. So one of the things we're doing is convening the HR hiring partners at companies to think about how is it that we need to think about young people differently. We have a tremendous partnership with a group called 110, and they're looking to do 1 million jobs in 10 years for non-degree having Black youth, because I think the proxy of the undergrad, graduate, whatever degree, again, I don't want to poo-poo that. I've gone to school, I recognize it as a real avenue, but it can't be a knockout rule for the talent many of our young people have. So we've got to think about competency-based learning, other ways and kind of unique and innovative ways in which young people acquire skills. And then we got to change the mindset of hiring folk who simply hire in their own image, or who look at as a proxy, you went to this school or that school as competence and skill, and we know that's not true. And so to your point, Raul, we're trying to organize an ecosystem of leaders and young people who are putting their arms around each other. Because I would argue young people have something to say, as well as adults in this space. And, that's why I keep saying, one of our proxies is working with like-minded companies.
So we've talked about a lot of things here, just recapping our year 2021. Pretty amazing year. We've had a lot of folks with a lot of content, a lot of things to say, everything from gender equity, running into, leadership development skills, the level and the practicality of services. And let's not forget approaches that we're using. Greg Taylor was very clear with us about flipping the script and getting the corporate sector ready for a lot of our young people, meeting them where they're at. That said, we look forward to 2022. I know Delmar and Eric have some words to help us move, but we're excited to expand our team. We'll have some other faces that will be on, reaching out to some very interesting folks. And we always welcome feedback, obviously, from the larger audience. So that's
Raul, that's one of the parts I'm most excited about, is the fact that, for 2022, we're going to have at least 2 additional folks helping, do interviews, and it's going to be 2 women. Sharuk, who you saw in one of the clips this evening, and then another woman named Corey Hamilton, who we've known for a while, who will again give us additional perspective on the field. And so we're looking forward. I'm excited about having some additional voices to do these interviews and to bring content to you all. So that's one of the things that's got me kind of stoked.
Good. All right.
Yeah, personally, myself, I just kind of building off actually just that last clip there that Greg had. I've been doing a lot of thought here recently around just because that's a big that's a huge concept in regards to getting the workforce prepared for young people. That's going to be a big bite, and just kind of thinking about how we do that and how we as the ETG podcast can help bring that philosophy and come side by side by the Greg Taylors of the world to kind of build that for young people. Because I think, as we head into 2022, I have these conversations every day with young people in the classroom, and we're still missing out on the connection of what's going on in the classroom, even at a high school level where I'm at, to being able to take these practical skill sets and apply what they're doing in the classroom to actual workforce related tasks. So that's something I've really been thinking a lot about. I'm looking and hoping that we can build on that in 2022 as a podcast.
Yeah, so one of the things, and again, who knows how it will unfold, but there's some great content that I know we're hoping to explore. Some, just digging deeper in formal education. I mean, that continues to be, you can watch any local newscast and see the conversations happening at the school board level on what education should be maybe in each community. And so we want to be able to have that kind of discussion here and bring on the right folks to have that conversation so it all moves forward. And so, but there's some really rich areas. I know we plan on doing more and more live or remote podcasts, at conferences and events, and they might be short but sweet little interviews just so we get additional voices out there. So, the content area, we're certainly looking at just challenging ourselves in that way as well. What other thoughts are coming up as we kind of bring this year formally to a close and we look forward to 2022?
Well, I'll share. We're coming off about a week ago we'll release this about a week away from Martin Luther King holiday, celebrating that and thinking back to Dennis's clip there that, we've come a long ways as a society since back then, but we still got a long ways to go on a variety of different fronts there. And we as a group here are trying to help push the needle there for us to kind of just rethink about the way we think about all things related to youth. So I think it was a great opportunity. I reflected back on actually the letter from Birmingham, actually, that Dr. King wrote there. And just to kind of revisit some of those things, we still have a ways to go just in regards to the letter that he wrote, the way we treat one another as human beings. So just a little thought there as we close out today there with reflections is hopefully we as human beings can treat each other better in such a time where we've had a lot of turmoil and just a nation that's divided on a lot of different things. But despite those divisions, we have to hear each other out.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right, Delma.
Yeah, you bet. So we've had a lot of fun doing this. I know I have, and just even looking back at some of these clips, I think about just our very first episode, which was as a member of my family told me, that was boring. And I tried to say, well, you know, it really wasn't maybe for you. But in all seriousness, we have improved. You can see just even looking at the clips, we've gotten a little snazzier with the look and some of those kind of superficial things. And honestly, a lot of it is reflected on the listeners and the viewers. We've had a tremendous amount of growth in this podcast in terms of people that have continued to show up with us. And we're forever grateful on that. And it just makes us want to work that much harder at what we're doing, because we know that this information is important to you all. And so we will continue to hold that in esteem as we put together 2022. Excellent. Well said. And, you know, there's a lot of serious topics taken here. And so we thought we would end on a more lighter note to maybe be kind of a theme for all of us in 2022 that can be one of happiness and joy and of smiles.
What resonated with people at this particular moment in time was the importance of kindness and of compassion and of mutual respect, the importance of home. And Norbert's message has been consistent over time, and people appreciate that he tries to make people smile. And one of the questions that we would always have for children when we would go into schools and do presentations is, what can you do to make people smile? We can all make somebody smile. What can you do to make people smile? And the answers that we would get would be just so creative and so wonderful, even from children as young as kindergarten. They would all know how to make someone smile. So I think in this particular time, when people were just dealing with so much and going through so much, it was just always nice to know that there's a way we can all think of making someone else smile.